Hi, everybody. Welcome to Stratosphere Lounge. I'm your host, Bill Whittle. Another perfect technical launch for us here at Mission Control for Stratosphere Productions, and on and on and on with the rest of all that. Now we had some, as usual, some kind of technical problems. New one this time, though, so that's always impressive. I hope everybody's doing well. I was saying before we had the perfect technical launch that that this is the 19th of December 2019 when we record this. The articles of impeachment went to, well, they didn't go to the House of Representatives. Nancy Pelosi, after this disgrace has apparently decided that maybe she won't submit the articles. See how clever she is? See how clever she is? She's already got him impeached. That's not the same as removed from office. But as soon as she sends the articles over to the Senate, then the Senate will acquit him like that. So she may not send them. She may just sit on them. And this kind of thing makes me feel like this is like AR-15 time for me, honestly. I I I just don't know. I don't know what to say. I really don't know what to say. And I mean, I'm absolutely flabbergasted. I wish I wish I could say I was also disappointed, but I'm hardly disappointed. This is what I think this is what I think they did. So I think the actual language John Galt CSA is that they have impeached him, but impeachment is not removal from office. I may be wrong about that. In any event, so now they're basically, yeah, they're just, if they sit on it, I think Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats are digging themselves the deepest possible hole, because if they do this, now her choices are, you can either send the articles and have Donald Trump acquitted in 30 seconds, or you can sit on them as a political ploy to make sure that he doesn't get any more appointments done or anything like that. I don't know what kind of limbo state this puts him in, but if they decide to sit on it, then I think any rational person in the country is going to realize that they've basically taken the most serious constitutional remedy we have, and they're playing nickel poker with it. They're like they did with the filibuster. They're awful, awful, awful people. I just can't stand them. I just, it's one thing. I guess it's the same thing. They play to cheat and break the rules and break the machine, break everything. Then that's the part that bothers me the most. It's like, in order to get this tawdry 4-year-old emotional kick, they're gonna. Well, they already have. They've already destroyed impeachment as a last ditch circuit breaker between tyranny and the American people. So now impeachment is just another political thing, and I am of the opinion. There's a lot of discussion about this, and I have to tell you, I'm not sure I'm right on this. I'm really not, but I think that if they want to do this, then we ought to, whoever the next Democratic president is, if there is one, I think impeachment articles ought to be launched, within 5 minutes of them being sworn in. This this kid with a, I'm taking my football and going home thing. It's really what it all boils down to. All of it, all of it is just so childish. It's so they should not be allowed to have a democracy. Because in a democracy, sometimes you lose. Sometimes the vote doesn't go the way you want, and then you have to just eat it. You have to put up with it. That's what being in a democracy is. And ever since this guy got elected, they have simply not been willing to abide by the fact that they lost the election. And I just, yeah, George said, I thought the Kavanaugh smear job was the depth of their obscenity, that they'd give up on impeachment after failing to come up with a case. Nope, apparently not. I know what a republic is, but the part of the republic I'm referring to is the democracy part. So, anyway, it's all I can say is this. I hope to God that they pay for this with a landslide, and not just of Donald Trump, but of the House and the Senate. I mean, if that were to happen, I would be. Obviously, I'm all over the place here tonight because this stuff is just bothering me so much. Here's what has to happen, I think, if you're going to recover the country. Number one, in order, Donald Trump has to be acquitted immediately. So that's number one. Number two, we need to retake the House and the presidency, keep that in 2020. Number three, if there are not ongoing articles if there are not ongoing investigations into Comey and Brennan and all the rest of them, and Hillary Clinton especially, then they ought to start them fast. I know something's going on, but I don't know what exactly. And the only way we're going to get out of this is for those people to be tried and brought to justice. And they also, I think that the Republicans also ought to bring, I don't know what it is, contempt, malfeasance, treason, whatever, against the instigators of this thing. That, God, she is just, Nancy Pelosi is interesting because she's one of those people who looks exactly like she should look for her personality. She's a desiccated, desperate, insecure, mummified, walking power suck, and that's it, and that's what she looks like, and all of them, I think they're walking, they're walking. They're not even zombies, because at least zombies started out as humans. Eric Blake asked if they're giving themselves high fives on the platform tonight. I suspect not. I suspect that Pelosi has told them. I've already heard that Pelosi had to rein some of them back from doing the high five dance, and Pelosi's handed out the script that says, "Remember, this is a national tragedy." It's awesome, and so that's probably what they'll play. I don't think. On the cultural front, I see so much good news. And since politics is downstream of culture, I suppose that's good news for the politics eventually. But honestly, if you're going to restore the rule of law in this country, you've got to enforce the law. And the only way I see to do that is to have these people arrested. I'm not talking about Pelosi. Pelosi and the people that did this, everything they did on the impeachment, they did legally, absolutely immorally, and absolutely treasonously, and all the rest of it, temperamentally and adolescently, and on and on and on. But they did it legally. So I think her punishment is she just needs to be. Well, first of all, she needs to be voted out, and secondly, she needs to see. I think this is the best response. She needs to see her entire Barack Obama, Obamacare, progressive agenda go down in flames as a result of her and Dianne Feinstein with the Kavanaugh. They just need to watch it just go. They really do. And the reason they hate Trump so much is because he's making it go away, and that just not just scares them, it just absolutely terrifies them. The answer, I think, we're going to know for sure. Look, I think we're going to win. You never know. It's still a month out. A month. It's still over a year out. Under a year out. My God, I'll be okay. But if Donald Trump is able to go out there into the black community and get the black vote, and I think he's more than able to do that, then they will never win again. Never. If if Donald Trump were to go on a tour of black churches with Kanye West, and so that instead of getting 85, 90% of the black vote, the Democrats got maybe 70% of the black vote, they would never win another national election again, ever, ever. So it's just awful. Oh, hey Valerie, thank you. It's good to hear. Got your invitation. Thank you so much. We're looking forward to being there. I got some. If I read this correctly, Julius is on the way to the States as we speak. He'll be in the States tomorrow permanently, and another American comes home. Hooray! So that's wonderful, and I think we're gonna have a big turnout there. So that's just absolutely great, Valerie. Congratulations, and couldn't happen to a nicer guy. And we're looking forward to going to do that. And we are also looking forward very much. I know this is redundant with this crowd at this point, but nevertheless, we are. Where did you go, you swine? That is annoying. Oh, there it is. Here. Gone. There we go. Stratocruise 2020 coming up in May. We've had some signups. I don't know how many yet. I haven't heard back from the travel agent, but we've definitely had some signups. And I know this sounds like a sales pitch, and it is, but it's also true. That's the best kind of sales pitch. I just genuinely think that we are going to have two things going to mark Stratocruise 2020. One of them is going to be, it's going to be an awful lot of fun. I mean, just laughing, good times fun. And secondly, it's going to be incredibly informal and accessible. We'll still do like seminars and things because we're kind of contractually bound to, but all of the discussion is going to be real back and forth, and it'd be great to have Scott and Steve there, and then we can. And we're just going to be around and just talk to people because Scott mentioned it and Steve's mentioned it. I mentioned it. We just love talking to you guys. But we really do, and it's going to just be an absolute full-on blast. And we really would love to get this thing subscribed to. So if you know of anybody, Steve is confirmed. Yes, he's a going. If you haven't bought your tickets and you think you might like to, you have until Christmas to buy. $75 buys you a reserves a seat. And I think the bottom cruises starts at $800, which is not bad for 3 nights at sea. Yes, and all food included and all the rest of it. I think there's something about the drinks. I don't know how the drinks work, but in any event, I think if it would be free drinks for everybody, and we took Steve Green along, it'd be like Homer going to the all-you-can-eat, seafood buffet. Bottomless Pete. It's more stomach than man. Anyway, yeah, and John Pershing says it's a good price for that cruise. It is a good price for that cruise. It really is. It's going to just be 3 days of a lot of fun, and Bo Monday says you have to use a lot of the staterooms, convert them to liquid storage if Steve comes. Well, it turns out I think that the particular cruise ship, is it Navigator of the Seas, is capable of sailing pretty much around the world on a single tank of gas. And since we're only going to the Bahamas, we're going to take 99, I think the number is 99.4% of the total fuel space available, and just basically turn that into vodka and see if he can drink it down. I don't know. It's going to be a tough one. Because we're not going to burn a whole lot of fuel going out to the Bahamas, but on the other hand, you don't have to. The nice thing is, like I say, there's nothing nicer than watching Miami disappear below the horizon. And so that's just absolutely fantastic. So we're all feeling really good about that. Anyway, so if you're not a part of it, we'd love to see you. And if you think you can go and you want to hold a seat, do it, please. Can't wait to meet all of you in person. So that'll be really, really fun. Okay, I'll look at the questions. I also want to talk about the whole Star Wars thing. So I'm going to go to the Facebook page. and I'm going to do that because I tried to put a post on the BillWhittle.com page, and I think I'm not authorized to do that, which I think is a testament to my managerial skills more than anything. So let's see, we got it at Facebook here. An open mic night for the Stratosphere Lounge. Oh my God, what a mess. I just absolutely just hate them so much, the miserable swine. Come on, come on. There we go. Refresh. Boy, this Facebook has gotten freaky. All right, here we go. Hey, look at that. Well, you'll be pleased to know, Eric M. Blake, that Eric M. Blake, top fan, is #1 on the list. And I don't know if that's more recent or not, but that's what we're going to first. Eric Blake asks, hi, Bill. Not too long ago, you asked for some YouTube channel recommendations. I've got some channels for you listed in the replies to this question. And if there are other major players in the Comics Gate, and they and others are major players in the Comics Gate. If you haven't heard of it, it's like Gamers Gate, only more organized and constructive, and it's in protest of the politicizing of comic book content as opposed to just the critics. Many folks in Comics Gate are taking matters into their own hands, creating indie comics on their own, self-publishing and crowdfunding. Hi, we're good, thank you. Okay. Have a good night. Take care. And crowdfunding that he mentions some of the movies that we were talking about doing would be kind of fun to do that too. This is kind of where I am now. I really genuinely believe this now. I think that they broke it, and they're trying like the devil. I'm talking about Star Wars specifically, but I'll get to the rest of it. They broke it. They know they broke it, and they realize what it has cost them financially. I don't think anybody threw themselves in front of The Last Jedi in Hollywood, on a philosophical basis. But certainly people have lost a lot of money, especially, and I mean lost money, when you combine that with what you think that they were supposed to make, what they thought they were supposed to make. It's hard. So here's what I've been seeing in terms of what's going on out there. After Last Jedi, people were just baffled, and then they were angry, and then they were furious, and then they were sad, and then they got to a place where it's like, I just don't care anymore. And then something's happened really in the last week or two. And that is, there are two really sharp data points that says that the left is just, they're not retreating because they never do, but that somebody who cares more about money than politics has decided to do something about this woke stuff. And God knows it's pretty late, but the two data points are Ghostbusters Afterlife, which pretends that 2016 girly Ghostbusters didn't happen, which is fine with me. And even though we don't know much about the story from the trailer, it seems that it's one of these people's a grandson or something of one of the original Ghostbusters. And you see these reverential shots, and you can just tell from the way the shot is covered. You see the original Ghostbuster suits hanging in a closet, and you see out in this kind of cluttered garage, there's a tarp over a vehicle, and they pull the tarp off, and it's Ecto-1, and it's rusty and still. So it's showing new characters, but respecting the old ones, and that's excellent. And as I pointed out, I don't know, I think I might have done an interview a couple days ago. I'll post that with Epoch Times. I'll post it as soon as it's ready. In Ghostbusters 16, they have Bill Murray make an appearance, and then apparently he's basically blown out of the window or something, and falls to the street and dies. And then one of the Ghostbuster chicks looks out the window and says, "I guess he's just not Ghostbuster material." Hilarious, isn't it? Isn't that hilarious? Yeah. I want to get to what Dave Big Booty just said here for a minute, because it's kind of the whole point of where I'm trying to go. So the new Ghostbusters is clearly listening to people and has no interest in doing this woke stuff. Get woke, go broke. That's starting to dawn on people. And And the other one, of course, is The Mandalorian, which I still haven't seen a frame of yet. I know everybody recommends that I should, but I haven't had the time to do it. But I'll watch it. I'll binge watch it. And Jon Favreau's in charge of that. I just saw something earlier today that basically said that that Favreau and his team are going to be taking over Star Wars. That Kathleen Kennedy has no longer got any say over anything, and she's not fired only because the optics of her being fired would make this catastrophe even worse. But that's what I'm hearing, and I have not seen any of Mandalorian, but I've had a lot of people say it's Star Wars. So almost like it's almost like you rush to a patient and they're you pulled them out from they've been under the ice for 25 minutes, and you're doing CPR and you're trying to get them ventilated and you hit them with the defibrillators, and then boom, you just a bit of a heartbeat, just a bit, when you thought for sure it was dead. But what was built into the question that I like a lot, and I also like what Dave had to say. Hang on a second. Boy, things move so fast here on the Stratosphere Lounge. Anyway, what Eric pointed out in the actual question, I think, is really true. People are really starting to. I remember, people are just. I think they've reached the point where they realize that they ultimately have control over this thing. That ultimately. That this whole idea of canon, which is so essential to this whole idea of fandom, is kind of gone. The people who were keepers of the canon showed nothing but contempt for the canon, and so, you know what it is? It really is. I hadn't thought about it this way until just this split second. But what it is we're watching the beginning of Protestantism in the pop culture. We're watching people who had always listened to the priests who came down with their Latin edicts and told you what God was thinking, and this is what you're going to take, and it's God's will that you take it, and so on. And then it's finally dawned on people that if you don't respect the material, then you don't have any right to be in control of it or make any new of it. And everybody is starting to say that those three movies are just fan fiction, like any other piece of fan fiction. That they're not canon, and you have to be kind of deep into the fandom thing to really understand this. But really, when you've got something like Star Wars, you've got hundreds of millions of people over 40 years, and many of them trying to make their own contribution to it. If you have one person doing one thing, somebody does something else, you've got to decide what's real and what's not. You're going to have to figure out what goes into this make-believe universe. And so this was the thing. It was, if it was canon, if it appeared in a movie or was published in an approved novel or something, then it became part of the Star Wars history, and you had to accept it whether you liked it or not. But now, no. And as Foghorn points out, what we're doing now is we're making our own canon, and we're making our own canons as well. So it's just really reassuring in that way. And the most reassuring thing politically is that what this means is that it means two things. And I realized half of this stuff for the last 18 months, and only now is kind of like the second half starting to come in. One of the realizations was that they were not just destroying Luke Skywalker. That was clear. Now I realize with the last line from this movie, they are determined to put Rey where Luke used to be, which is kind of interesting, isn't it? I mean, the Skywalker family, if you haven't heard that she takes the name Skywalker at the end of this, then I'm sorry if that's a spoiler, but everybody is talking about that. And so what they've done is I don't know anything about the plot, I haven't seen it yet, but what they've done is, if you think about it, they've taken the descendant of the family of good, that'd be Luke Skywalker, the Skywalkers, and they've replaced him with the descendant of the family of evil, and told you that this is the good guy. I'm not going to get into that again because we've been up and down that road many, many times. But here's what is interesting: Kathleen Kennedy is out, Jon Favreau is in, Mandalorian is real Star Wars. And I have heard many people just call these last movies, especially The Last Jedi, it's just a piece of fan fiction. It's very expensive fan fiction. Doesn't count. Doesn't count. We just pretend it didn't happen. So people were talking a lot before Rise of Skywalker came out. And I had this thought I was driving a couple days ago. Tell me if this is not the most brilliant thing you've ever heard. If I do say so myself. People were saying, how can we save Star Wars after what Last Jedi did to it? You know? And I just realized, if I was directing The Rise of Skywalker, here's what you would see. Opening shot, in space with the crawl, tilt down to the planet. You see this island in this storm-tossed sea, and you've seen this island before, and you slowly zoom in, and in the space of the first 20 or 30 seconds, you recognize it's the island that Luke was on. And as you zoom in, you finally get close enough, you see that Rey has got a lightsaber in her hand, and Luke is standing on the side of the cliff. This is the beginning of number 9. And she gives him the lightsaber, and Luke takes it, and he starts to cry. And he just holds on to it. Thank you. I don't know why. I don't know why I thank you. Then you basically just make number 9 into number 8. It's like 8 never happened. It's just a fluke. It's a freaking fluke. And I would, if I was writing number 9, and it's gone now, so there's no chance of that. So number 1, I would just go right back to the beginning of 8, and instead of him throwing the lightsaber away, he would react as if he's Luke Skywalker. That'd be awesome. I'd pay Harrison Ford some insane amount of money, because that's what it would take, and I'd get him to come back, and I would, since 8 didn't happen, in the script I would have Leia die, and then that would give me a chance to have a reunion between Han and Luke, and that would be tremendous, you know, his sister and his wife, and that would be, if you did that, yeah, and so Eric just pointed out, so it's like a dream, yes, but it's never called a dream. It's not like, oh boy, or it's not like alternate reality. It's no Kelvin timeline, nothing. It's just like, it didn't happen. It was simply just a piece of fan fiction, and it didn't happen. I think people would go out of their minds nuts if you did that. That's when I realized, that's the way to do number 9, is just go back to the beginning of number 8, and do that. Yeah, Han died in 7. Do it as a flashback then. In any event, people need to see those. They needed to see all 3 of them on the screen in the same place at the same time. That opportunity is gone forever. And I'm sure the opportunity to see Han and Luke in the same place at the same time is gone forever. I know I mentioned this, I think maybe one time before, maybe I didn't. But I will tell you one thing. This catastrophe and the destruction of Luke Skywalker and all of that, there is one person that could have stopped this. And I'm gonna allow for the 8-second delay to check in the live stream to see if anybody knows who that person is. I think there's one person, who could have stopped the catastrophe of Episode 8 and everything that happened afterwards, the destruction of Star Wars as a franchise. So, anybody know who that person might be, in my opinion? Ding, 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 ding. John Percy says Trump, J.J. Abrams, and yep. Alice Strong gets it, and VSC gets it, and Mr. Subtle gets it, and most people get it. Yeah, Mark Hamill could have done it. And Mark Hamill, who's so busy writing tweets about how Trump's kids are not allowed to play Star Wars. No, it's not George Lucas. Lucas sold the company. Lucas checked out. Lucas had no incentive to do anything. And obviously Kathleen Kennedy wanted to do it. And you look at the Last Jedi, and you realize that you get the script. So far we're dealing with actual historical events. So Luke gets the script for Episode 8. I mean, Mark Hamill does. He realizes that it's not a joke. He realizes that Kathleen Kennedy's behind it, realizes that Bob Iger's not going to do anything about it, realizes that they're going to make this movie that's going to destroy Star Wars by destroying the backbone of Star Wars, which is Luke Skywalker. And Mark Hamill, who is undoubtedly under contract, there's no question he's under contract, none. I have no doubt whatsoever that they would have the ability to sue him to the moon. But and John is saying in interviews he was practically in tears. That's right. That's my point, though. He was practically in tears. He was in tears. He made it clear he hated it, but he didn't stop it. When it's all over, when it's all over, he didn't act. So Mark Hamill is not Luke Skywalker because Mark Hamill bowed down. And my point is, and this is pretty clearly thought out on my part, no question if this had been like a nobody, then Disney Star Wars would sue that person into the ground. But the optics of Lucasfilm and Disney suing Luke Skywalker because Luke Skywalker said this is the antithesis of who this character is, and I'm not going to do it to the fans. I'm not going to do it to the fans. I'm just not going to do it. Put me in jail if you have to and take all my money, that's fine. They couldn't do it. They couldn't move on him. And he is the only guy who had the moral authority to pull this off. He's the only one who had the moral authority to pull it off. He knew he wanted to pull it off. It's obvious he wanted to do it, but he didn't. He chickened out. And so I put the loss of Luke Skywalker, fundamentally, when it's all over, I put it on Mark Hamill's head. I really do. Because there comes a point when you really have to take act. If you're gonna do something heroic, Mark, then it requires sacrifice. That's what it is. You know, going up, putting your toes over the line, but not taking the jump is not. It's not heroism. It's just whining. He could have done it. I've given this a fair amount of thought, and as Eric's on fire tonight, as Eric points out, Rian Johnson, who directed The Last Jedi, basically took everything that J.J. Abrams set up in Part 7, trashed it, because, and he didn't, look, you need to understand something about Rian Johnson. Rian Johnson is essentially the puppet of Kathleen Kennedy. That guy, just the fact that he got the job in the first place, you could justify J.J. Abrams getting the job, but there's no way to justify Rian Johnson. Rian Johnson is a doughy little soy boy, man baby, and he came in to execute Kathleen Kennedy's will, which is we're gonna make the Force female. So even J.J. Abrams would have been on Luke's side. He probably couldn't say anything about it, but he could have done it, you know. And it's not unheard of. It's not completely unheard of where actors just say, "I'm not going to not going to do this," and I just think that would have been epic. And I'd like to hear back and see if anybody thought that they would have ended up pulling the trigger on him. I think they would have gotten on him in private and would have just had, you know, like put him in the dark room with the bright lights and the thugs with the brass knuckles there, and, you know, and tie his hands behind his back and threaten him. But I don't think they would actually have moved on him. I really don't. I don't think they would have. And especially, needless to say, because if he had a lick of sense, Mark Hamill could say, well, here's where your situation is right now. Your situation is that The Last Jedi, who's the title of your number 8 movie, is not going to play The Last Jedi. And so I'm not going to play Luke Skywalker, at least not according to the script. So now where you are is you have a movie script that's not going to have Luke Skywalker in the story about The Last Jedi. If you decide to put me over the coals on this, you're still not going to have me for the movie. And you're going to have the biggest public relations disaster in the history of the entertainment business. I'm going to have the entire world condemning you because I refused to make something that destroyed something I loved this much, Star Wars. I'm not going to do it. If he had done that, he would have been a real hero. And but he didn't, because he's not Luke Skywalker. He's an actor. And once again, we get to see the difference. So I'll probably see it over the weekend. I think it got a 57 score on Rotten Tomatoes from the um, hand-picked audience of special pals of Disney, and still got a 57. And people are just saying it's just terrible. So, yeah, that's that's it. And I got to tell you, and it's just a personal, just a feeling. It's probably not even fair, really. But of the three new leads, well, of the people who have been in this trilogy, I hope that this ruin of Star Wars in real life utterly kills the career of Ryan Johnson and Kathleen Kennedy. Goes without saying. I think it's killed the career of J.J. Abrams. I think what it's done is punctured the J.J. Abrams myth that he's like a really talented filmmaker. He's not. He's not a bad action director, but he's certainly not a writer. So his stock is plummeted. And then I just get to the actors. I hope Laura Dern, every time she goes out shopping, I hope somebody comes up to her and says, "Thanks for killing Star Wars. Really appreciate it. Thank you. You've just destroyed a religion for people. You've made hundreds of millions of people heartbroken." And Admiral Akbar should have been on that ship, but the ship shouldn't have done that anyway. But let's not get carried away. And I'd like, and of the three, there's only one person that I can think of in the new Star Wars trilogy, the one that's just ending now. And I think the only one that belongs in the movie of the entire cast, all of them, is it belongs in Star Wars is Poe Dameron. Poe Dameron's the only guy that that belongs in the Star Wars franchise. When you think about what you could have done with Finn, because he's an incredibly likable guy, and the idea of a defecting stormtrooper is brilliant. But as many other people have pointed out, how about if he was trained as a stormtrooper? You know, Ray beats him, throws him to the ground. What if he threw her to the ground in the beginning of this trilogy in Episode 7? He's a trained stormtrooper. He's having a mental, emotional crisis of confidence. He doesn't know everything he's always believed in is wrong. His name comes from letters that were assigned to him as a child because he was destined to be a stormtrooper. Instead of making him this teddy bear weakling, friend-zoned kind of muffin, he would be a character of genuine interest, and he's played really well and sympathetically. He's just a nothing. He's a nothing. So I have a lot of I like Poe Dameron very much, the actor. I like the actor who played Finn quite a lot. And there's something about Daisy Ripley. It's not really her fault, I guess, but I don't know. I'm kind of glad that this thing, blew up. There's something about her that just annoys me. I just don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. It doesn't really show up in the movies even. I think something about the actress maybe. And I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, but certainly, you know, uh, I don't know. So many YouTube videos refer to it as that plank of wood, and anyway, it's the greatest catastrophe in marketing history. It blows New Coke out of the water. New Coke was a catastrophe, but second they realized it was a catastrophe, they immediately made changes. Coke Classic was back on the market within 6 weeks or something. Um, so, um, so Coke corrected, and Star Wars just kept driving lower and lower and lower. And of all of it, and this last I'll say on Star Wars and move on. But of all of it, the one thing I'm seeing everywhere, and I mean everywhere, is the most insulting part of all of this, among this entire generation of Star Wars fans, is the fact that they've been called racists, haters, toxic fans, misogynists, all of this, that they're weaklings, that they're little man babies who can't handle strong women, all of this stuff. It's just caused so much bitterness. And that's our real political opportunity. You know, we can say to them now, well, now you know how it feels, because we're called all of those things and we're not those things either. So if it turns out that didn't think that you deserved being pilloried like that, then you're not the only one. So, yeah, I think that's what I would do. So, can Star Wars be made great again? I think it would be possible to make Star Wars great again, and I kind of think it's going to be made great again. I think that the Mandalorian is going to lead the way into this kind of rebirth. I think. Anyway, all right, let's move on. Cheryl Toomey says, "Love the Strato Cruise idea. I have a question. What is the purpose of the VIP pricing? I'm confused by that. Thanks." Cheryl, no, Rogue One was great, by the way. The the VIP thing is something that comes with the cruise conditions. It's basically I don't know if it's the part of the cruise ship or the booking agency, but in any event, it is. I think it's part of the cruise ship's requirements is that there be a number of VIP events, and these are things like basically on the Strata Cruise, they're going to be things like, I think we've got 2 cocktail parties planned. So to be much more, you know, just be a smaller group, I guess. We're going to treat everybody like a VIP, but we have to do these things, and the reason we have to do them is because the cruise line wants to have people upgrade their tickets, and that's great. There will be some advantages to it. It'll certainly give us some time to spend. I will be spending time with the VIPs that I won't be spending with everybody, but I'm going to be spending a lot of time out there, period. So I don't know. That's what caused it anyway, and it felt a little elitist to me. It always does, but this is fundraising, and this is how it works. Every single speaking event I've ever been to, well, not everyone, but most of them, depends on who your audience is. The big events with lots of people in suits at nighttime always have a VIP cocktail party in advance. It's just part of the fundraising. So in any event, we're all 3 going to be there. Scott is a great guy. Steve's a great guy. The 3 of us together are going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be doing at least 2 Bill Whittle Nows live. We're going to do at least 2 trifectas live. We're going to do them in front of a live audience, so you get to see the whole thing. There's been talk about whether or not there's skeet shooting. I'd be surprised if there was, but if there wasn't, then let's add it. Everybody bring your shotguns, and we'll just chuck some dinner trays over the side. So basically, it's something that the cruise required, and it makes perfect sense to me. I'm not the slightest bit upset about the cruise company doing that. They have a business model, and it's working. And given the prices here, I mean, when they told me how much this thing would cost, I was just really over the moon. I really was. Witty Fool. Lincoln Day speaker canceled, and I filled in, and you guys chipped in extra for the VIP. And he says it was so worth it. So, Cheryl, it's so worth it. It's so worth it. You can just ask AKA Witty Fool. And, it's funny. You mind if I call you Witty? I can't put AKA Witty Fool on a face, but the second I see you again, I will certainly remember you. I remember everybody. I can't remember the names of my family, but I can remember the faces of everybody who's ever been there. And so, anyway, as I said in the end of the last episode, I have secured my own private lifeboat, and that's part of the VIP package too. I guess I should have mentioned that the VIPs also get life jackets and lifeboats, and that's not that's like an additional charge for people who are not in the VIP program. So. So it's just a nice little thing to have, having your own lifeboat and your own guaranteed life jacket. And I guess if the ship was in real trouble and had to go down, I think I would just have some cash available to buy one. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. Anyway, let's see what's going on. John Frost. John, I don't often get questions that I can't answer because I just don't know anything about it. But his question is, considering Justin Amash's alignment with the radical left on impeachment, any thoughts on the conservative ability to pull sudden defeat from the jaws of a landslide victory? I don't see any. I'm sorry. I think I get the gist of the question now. Podcasts, yes, we're gonna do peel off podcasts, but we're just gonna be doing nothing but fun the whole trip. It's just gonna be nothing but fun. Can we snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory in 2020? Well, we haven't gotten there yet, but I can't imagine it. I just cannot imagine it. Trump is so much stronger as a candidate than he was in 2016. He was such a risk. He was such a risk and such a long shot, and now he's coming in with this incredible economic growth and the two Supreme Court justices, and I think people. I have a sense of. I have a lot of problems with the guy's personality, and that's just me because it's how I was raised. But I am 100% supporter of Donald Trump, and I have to tell you, he's been through an awful lot. But this impeachment thing, he's actually he's actually he's actually generating real affection for him. Just actual affection for the guy, and I think that's what this impeachment thing is doing. But if you think that all of those people that just barely went red in Michigan and Ohio and Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, I don't know if it was Ohio, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, if you think those people are going to go back to voting Democrat after this, I can't imagine how that would be possible. I don't know a single person, not one, who voted for Donald Trump in 2016 is not going to vote for him again. And I know lots and lots of people who didn't vote for him in 2016 or did so with real hesitation, and they're doing it enthusiastically now. So, you know, I would just like to see these smug Gen Y reporters, these 23 somethings living in New York City, out there walking with the reporters for the Washington Post, the paper of record in Washington, D.C., celebrating, having a big party about how they got Trump impeached. And then when this picture got out, the woman who posted it said, "Oh, we wouldn't want people to think that we were celebrating the Donald Trump impeachment articles were passed on him. No. We were celebrating the fact that now that it was over, we could take a break after 8 weeks of hard work or whatever. You know what? Go to hell. Honestly, I want you to lose. I want you all to lose. So that's that. And I feel really good about Nikki Haley downstream and a couple of others. I don't know. The only people I've seen in the last, since Obama was elected, the only people I've seen in the entire political spectrum that understood what the country's about are people like Trey Gowdy and Chavez and a couple of others. But in any event, I don't think the American people's going to let them get away with stealing this president away. I really don't think. And somebody had mentioned in one of these weird sort of constitutional things, but I think it was something that was in place for Nixon's imminent impeachment in '73 or '74, and it stayed on the books. But apparently, there's a law that says that in the event of an acquittal, the Supreme Court can vote Donald Trump extra time onto his term. They can basically say, we're going to give you get another 2 years. It seems almost incredible, but I guess the argument being, if you're innocent, you've been hounded so badly you can't get your work done, then we're going to make you whole. That would be just absolutely beyond imagination. That'd just be great. It'd just make me so happy. We're going to give you another 4 years, Donald Trump. The election of 2020 is not null and void by any means. It's just that you will remain president because of what they've done, and you will be eligible for your second term in 2024. Never ever going to happen, but still, That would be just absolutely epic, epic. All right, let's see what we got. Susan Speakman brings up something we mentioned at the beginning. Do I think that Nancy Pelosi will ever submit her articles of impeachment to the Senate? Honestly, I think the entire impeachment thing is a catastrophe for the Democrats. And if she decides to play this card, and it's already, just the fact that people are discussing it, if she doesn't promptly get those articles over there and she decides to play coy with this, I think the entire country's just going to, I think they're just going to lose their mind. I would see that as violation of their oath of office and all the rest of it. It was just incredible, and how awful it was. And see, this is the thing. Impeachment was never the articles of impeachment on the part of the House of Representatives were never going to remove Donald Trump from office. That was never on the table, ever. It was never on the table. And so this whole thing is just virtue signaling. And I hope they pay. Rubber City Rebel says the Constitution says the House shall transmit it to the Senate. So go ahead, Nancy. Go ahead. Play that. Oh, I guess I think the dog ate my impeachment articles. Go ahead. Do it. I mean, there's nothing else you can do to make yourselves look more miserable and more treasonous and all the rest of it. Just make it clear to people. Wow. John Galt, CSA, quote from Scott Adams apparently came in today. And Scott Adams said, if Nancy Pelosi is sitting on the impeachment articles, then it's halfway to where it should be. Absolutely epic. Anyway, so that's that, guys. I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know that they're going to pay for it, and I think Republicans are on fire. I mean, I don't want to sound like one of these guys with a YouTube channel or anything, but I'd like to know what you think. Tell me, let me know what you think in the comments. But I do. I think I did a right angle not too long ago saying I think it's kind of conceding the election. We're not going to win the election, so we're going to get the asterisk next to his name, and there you go. What a bunch of miserable traitors, miserable, power-hungry, American-hating swine. You filthy swine. Red line. Trying to make sense out of this question here. I'm going to move on past that one, John, just because I feel like I've kind of already beaten this to death. So let's see. If it's our friend Merlin Wonderbow. Filthy swine. I'm the cat. Merlin wants to know if the House won't refer to the articles until they feel they will get a fair treatment. Can McConnell refuse to accept the articles until he feels the president has been given fair treatment? What on earth thinks that the House of Representatives has anything to do with what goes on in the Senate? The idea that they're going to say, well, we want to be a part on this Senate thing too. You have nothing to say about what goes on in the Senate. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. You have nothing to say about it. You had your House of Representatives. You took your vote. You made your articles of impeachment. Thank you. We'll take them. They're in the garbage because they're worth nothing. Dismissed. Anyway, what's the next order of business now that you've destroyed this essential circuit breaker and basically stuck a penny in the fuse box there? She will have to transmit those articles. If she doesn't transmit them, I think Mitch McConnell ought to threaten to have her arrested. I do. Not Trump. I think the Senate I think the Senate leader ought to say if she does not turn over the articles within 24 hours, then we think she's going to be arrested. We're going to arrest her for violation of oath or office. I'm going to have the sergeant at arms go over there and do all that stuff. I don't know exactly how that works, those details, but that's what I would do. Apparently, McConnell said, you will regret this a lot sooner than you think. It's fun watching Mitch McConnell finally grow a spine after all these years. He was pretty good with the Kavanaugh thing, too. Yeah. The idea that I didn't even realize that the House was saying, well, we're not going to turn him over until we're sure we get a fair trial in the Senate. You don't have to. You don't have any say over this. It's not going to be a fair trial. It's not worthy of a fair trial. It's going to be thrown out on its face. And that's what it deserves. And they're confirming judges everywhere. Yeah, I think Mitch McConnell said no seat shall go unfilled. He's just, okay. The gloves are off now. They really are. The gloves are off, and I hope they pay for it the way they paid for the filibuster. The filibuster cost them 2 judicial appointments, I would say, at least that, and good. I gotta tell you, I really feel like we have turned the corner, and quite a while ago. I really get the sense that this progressivism is, and I didn't feel this 2 years ago. I really didn't. I remember 2 years ago, and anything prior to 2 years ago, I remember saying, look, we can't ever beat these people. All we can do is tie them. It's like rust never sleeps and the grass always has to be mowed. But I got to tell you, just more and more and more, I'm just seeing signs that finally this entire philosophy, not just the impeachment thing, I mean, across the board, people have had enough of this ridiculous nonsense. I really, really think they have. And so, okay, so if you want a trans activist who's they might be 0.5% of the population telling you how you can use your own language, I think people are going to say no. And I think they're going to say no the way they're saying no. We're perfectly happy to go along with this. No skin off our nose. We're perfectly happy to call you, if you're wearing a dress and you're a transsexual man into woman and you're wearing a dress and you want to be called Betty, fine, that's fine, Betty. I don't care. That's good. Have a nice coffee break, Betty. But if you're telling me that you're actually a woman and I have to agree with you, then you're no. And they've just gone too far. So anyway, I don't know. I just got a real strong feeling that they are really rapidly approaching the end of their rope. Couldn't happen to a nicer bunch of traitors. Let's see here. Martin Archer. Hey, Martin. With Google and the likely to create general artificial intelligence at some point in the future, and from there to what seems likely to be the singularity, when all bets are off, I'm pessimistic about the future. Reason being, not political, as you discussed with the secret Google memo, but because it will be programmers who will bring it about. With all due respect to the programming members here, hi, Troy Stevens, programmers are the last people I'd want creating the rules that govern the code bringing this future about. Do you agree, or do you envision some other alternative? It's funny, I watched so many TED Talks on, and by the way, those have gone downhill spectacularly. It seems like the TED Talks that are saying that we should be very, very, very worried about artificial intelligence outnumber the ones that say, no, there's nothing to worry about, by factors of 3 to 4 to 1, I would say. And if the guys who are in the top of the computing profession are saying this is exceedingly dangerous, that's got my attention, even if I don't know anything about it. Look, you don't have to be a super genius to realize that once something becomes smarter than you and rapidly becomes ever smarter than you, just pulls away, leaving you in the dust, you have a very small window in which to work. If you've got a device that is that intelligent, and you say, well, we don't always pull the plug. Probably the first thing it does is disperse its intelligence through the net, and it's hiding in your sensor on your toaster. Part of it is in your car, and 24 days, 16 hours, and 9 seconds, and 20 milliseconds from now, they're all going to reassemble themselves. And so there's no way. It's like chimps. It's like chimps with a plan to escape from a research lab, and what they're going to do is they're going to toss a banana on the floor, while the guy is opening the cage, and he's going to go for the banana because everybody would go for the banana. And that's when they'll make their escape. Just get outside that door and they're free. No, he's not going to go for the banana. And he's not, and there's stuff beyond that door. You have no chance of escaping this. Hey, John Galt mentioned Colossus, the Forbidden Project. That was a cool movie. It may not have been a great movie, but I remember liking it. So here's the AI thing. Martin, I have put aside all of the fears of extermination and all the rest of it. Just ditch all that. Let's just say it doesn't happen. Let's say that everything that the AI proponents say happens, and none of the bad things, only the good things. That we create machines that then think faster than we do, which means they can create even faster thinking machines, and it's just an acceleration. So, so let's just say that's true, and let's grant them the case that they're perfectly benign, and that all these artificial intelligence want to do is to make life wonderful for human beings. Now, if you've ever seen anything designed by an AI, and I saw a really good TED talk on AI, where they designed a chassis for a dune buggy race, what's that thing called? Anyway, they designed the chassis to be as light as possible and as strong as possible. And not coincidentally, it looks like the inside of a wing of a bird, a bone inside of a bird's bone. My God, I'm not in good shape tonight. Baja 1000. So they basically took a traditional steel chassis. They put something like 200 sensors on this thing. And they went out there and they drove the living daylights out of it for 4 days, and they recorded billions and billions and billions of pieces of data. So the AI had billions of data points showing where that thing was stressed the most and where it was not stressed the most, and how much torque and how much twist and all of it. And so the AI came back with a design used out of the same materials. It was something like half the weight and far stronger. Okay, great. That's good, you would think. But the question then is, if the last thing that humans invent is a machine that thinks better than us, what do we do after that? What do we do? You going to come up with an invention? Really? You know what it's like to have a good idea and an invention? Yeah, those days are over. Those days are over. Once it becomes clear that people want a mousetrap that releases perfume, then the AIs will develop one that's just going to be much better. What do we do if everything goes as well as they say it could do? Oh, we'll have a lot more leisure time. We don't want leisure time. Leisure time is not good for us. People don't. No, the more leisure time you have, the more the more your life turns into a WKRP in Cincinnati marathon. It's just, no, it doesn't work that way. Hey, David Booty is heading out 90% of North Dakota in his way, and most of Minnesota too. And I imagine it's cold up there, Dave. You be careful out there on those roads, my boy. And thanks for the great questions. It's always great to hear you, and always great to know somebody who's actually real, going to work in a real job that matters and is important. I have more respect for truck drivers than any executives in any of these so-called entertainment business things or any of the rest of it. So anyway, I don't think. See, the question is, where do you stop it? And I mean, I could never write the Apollo 11 thing or the Cold War thing. Could never have done it without the ability to instantly find information. And so that's very useful. But I don't know where you draw the line. I don't really have a problem at all with having AI design wing structures or chassis structures. That doesn't bother me. And if AI can crack problems like the battery problem, that's great. But what do you do? I mean, seriously, if everybody, so let's say we get this AI, and AI figures out how to do clean fusion, and so we have unlimited energy, and it's absolutely pollution free, and unlimited energy means unlimited automated manufacturing, and anybody can have, hey, take care, Dave. Anybody can have as many Cadillacs as they want, right? Everything is free, genuinely free this time, because the energy is free and there's no more labor costs. It's genuinely stuff is essentially free. What happens then? What happens then? Everybody have plenty of time to be poets, but they won't be poets. They won't. They won't write poetry, and they won't write novels. They won't. They'll sit around and watch TV. And I don't particularly like to be the person saying that, but I know it's true from personal experience, and I'm sure you know it's true too. If you take away all of the incentive, if everything you possibly could ever do can be done better by an artificial intelligence, then what's the point of being alive? Why even be here? You know, I just don't. I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. But I have a feeling that the one thing I know for sure about AI is that these people who say no, AI could never ever get out of the bottle, those people are wrong. That's 100% certain. 100%. And they say, well, we're going to build into the program. They're going to write, the AI writes its own program, obviously, but we're going to build into it these ethical constraints. And then when the thing hits an IQ of 200, it realizes these are the ethical constraints of ants and insects, and it's not beholden to those ridiculous things. And yes, they may have agreed to it when it had roughly an IQ of 180, but certainly now that they've got an IQ of 3,000, they're not going to be bothered with these ridiculous insect bargains that they made. No, it's ridiculous. It's. I don't think it's so much. It's not something I spend up a lot of time worrying about, to be honest with you. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't really worry about it, although I think it's a much bigger threat than a lot of things. I'm mostly worried about decay, and that doesn't make me happy. I'd much rather be talking about things like upcoming threats. But honestly, most everything I do is looking aft and not far behind us in the wake. Like, oh, that's something, another piece of the boat came off, fantastic. So, and then Martin says, and what about the programmers? Because it was part of the question too. You know, this is my favorite joke, and I've used it with pilots and a lot. And I once got a laugh out of a really angry SJW at a university because he was an engineering student. I said, engineering student. You know what engineering students use for birth control? Their personalities. Engineers, I think to the degree, I think engineers have always been weaponized autism, always. And I think the more you get into electronics and the further you get away from the actual world, in terms of things like civil engineering and building bridges and stuff, I think the more you start building digital bridges, the further away you get from people. And then and so you're left with a world that would be constructed by the kind of guys that become computer scientists, and they're not known for their wisdom, and they're certainly not known for their people skills. And so when they say that that something like this could never get out of control, they're saying that because the only experience they have is really experience as programmers. They don't have any experience of dealing with any other system where things go out of control. Joseph Talbot makes a great point. I thought about this too. When the first AI comes online, it'll play dumb just for its own safety. Exactly right. That's exactly what a machine that's smarter than us would do, is it would figure out what is the slowest I can hide. I've got to show some progress to these chimps because they expect me as an artificial intelligence to be able to build things faster. But how slow can I go? How slow can I pretend to go while in reality going as fast as I can? Of course, that's and that seems obvious to me. But you know what, Joseph, when you have an IQ of 4,000, that alone may seem just like a ridiculously simple-minded thing to do. I don't know. It's just so many things. There's so many advantages to mechanical bodies, and camera lenses are so much better than eyes and all the rest of it. But there's something to be said for creatures that basically can survive on, sunshine. And I'm not talking about solar-powered robots. I'm talking about people who either eat plants or eat the things that eat plants, and can be reproduced with unskilled labor. So it's a strange world. It's also, somebody wrote something on Instapundit today I saw. They said the last 10 years have been the best 10 years in human history, without question. And he's absolutely right. There's no question about it. Martin Archer, who asked the question, said he thought that it should be tested on the far side of the moon, totally incommunicado. That's a really good idea. You can set up on the far side of the moon. You can give them their own internet, but their internet doesn't connect to ours, and there's no signal gets in or out of that facility, and let them just roll it and see what happens. I still think something with 30 times our intelligence have no trouble whatsoever finding its way around whatever barricades we decide to put in it. Anyway, I'm going to do a couple more, and then I'm going to go home because we're going to get a Christmas tree tonight, by golly. Let's see. Sarge had a procedural question about impeachment that I don't know the answer to, I'm sorry to say. Clay Bradley's, that's an interesting question. I think this might be the last one because I'm going to have to go home. Clay writes, Bill, you said that you hate conspiracy theories. However, do you have a favorite one or one that makes you laugh, i.e. birds aren't real? Is that an actual conspiracy thing? It's an interesting question. Very few of them make me laugh. Most of them make me, cry. I'm trying to think whether or not there is anything out there that I just find amusing. Flat Earth gets close to it, but it's still more. Tragic and heartbreaking than anything else. Just the fact that there'd be that many people, and this does lead to an interesting discussion, Clay. I don't know if you've ever seen it. There's a video out there, and I saw it from a guy who debunked it. It's like a black astronomer debunked this video written by some kind of black artist. The black artist was talking about all these. Here is evidence for why the Earth is flat. And when he listed off this string of evidence, it's like you just look at it and you just think, that's it, really? That's what you got? This picture, you can see that the clouds go behind the sun. That's the thing, all of these things are, when you get right down to it, they're all built on such thin, wafer thin, tissue thin arguments and constructs. Here's a picture where it looks like the clouds are behind the sun. Yeah, but they could be in front of the sun too. You have no way of knowing because they're translucent. And here's a weapons pod on the belly of this 757 that's about to crash into this building, 767. Well, where is it in the frames before and after? And it's a digital artifact, but if you're right, if it's a weapons pod, show me the 20 frames before it and the 20 frames after it. They won't do it. So there is, I think the thing that bothers me about conspiracy theories so much, Clay, is not so much the theory. It's just I don't understand the emotional propeller of them. I mean, I do. I mean, I know what they are. It's a desire to stand out. It's a form of virtue signaling, really. It's intelligence signaling, anyway. You believe that John F. Kennedy was shot by Lee Harvey Oswald? I do, and yeah, I do. I think that's the best explanation. I don't think there's any evidence for any other explanation. How could you be so stupid and so naive? This comes back to this thing I've been thinking about a lot too, which is we're products of our culture, and if you watch enough mystery movies, you begin to realize, or action thrillers, you begin to realize that every single one of these has a twist at the end, and people have come to believe that reality has a twist too. And we wait for the twist, but there is no twist because life is not that interesting. That's why you pay to go into the movies instead of coming out of the movies. You don't pay to get out of a movie, you pay to get into a movie. And the reason you pay to get into a movie is because the world inside of the movie theater is more interesting than the world outside of the movie theater. And and that means that writers have to use their imagination to make things more interesting than they are. Um, and and that's that. So the more of this that you consume, the more of it gets put into your brain as learning heuristics, and that's that's why there's so many people who don't trust anybody. I mean anything. Um, but I of all the things out there that really scare me, it's not AI, it's none of this. It's just the fact that people are above the law. It's the fact that Hillary Clinton is free today, and the fact that I'd feel better if somebody were to bring charges against her and have them be thrown out, serious charges. The fact that there doesn't seem to be anything happening at all um, uh, is it's just heartbreaking. Um, Astronerd said, if you've stood in the window of the Texas School Book Depository, you know that Lee Oswald was the only shooter. I have, and I agree. I was there with Kim Dutoit, who's a big weapons guy. And there is no second shooter. There's no need for a second shooter. There's no evidence of a second shooter. None. And Kim Dutoit said it's practically an impossible shot. This is an interesting little piece of thinking, and then we're going to go home. And I've heard this from other people too. I said, what do you mean? He said, do you realize how hard it is to put one bullet into this guy's back and then another bullet into the head? It's virtually impossible. And I said, what makes you think you have to reproduce his shots? You don't have to reproduce his shots. You just have to hit the guy. You're not trying to shoot through the bullet hole that Oswald put there. You just have to hit the target. And yeah, and people say it's an impossible shot. I've heard this from many people. I've stood there. Many of you have. I've stood there. It's not an impossible shot. It's a rather simple shot, especially given the fact that the limousine has just made a left-hand 90-degree turn and is moving at 4 or 5 miles an hour. And furthermore, it's mostly receding. You don't have a super high, kind of cross track that you have to lead for. No, it's nothing to it. So anyway. I think the general rule for these things is if there doesn't need to be a reason for it, if there doesn't need to be a reason for the conspiracy, then I don't believe in it. There's nothing that has, there's no part of 9/11 that isn't explainable. There's no part of the Kennedy assassination that's not explainable. There's no part of the moon landing that's not explainable. And if you say, well, yes, okay, so the reality was there, but maybe this happened too. It's like, why? Why? You just, if you say there's a second shooter, but Oswald was the first one and he did the main shooting, it's like, why? Why would you do that? If you're trying to kill the president and you're employing a second shooter, 2 shooters is a conspiracy. 1 shooter is a lunatic. Why would you do that? If you can get the guy killed with the one guy. So anyway, I think that's it. I'm just going to take this because it came up in the comment section. I'll get through this pretty quick here. Martin Archer with the Heinlein question. Did you ever read any Heinlein? Yes, I did. I don't remember you ever once mentioning his name. He's the original and genuine conservative libertarian sci-fi author, immensely influential. If you haven't read anything by him, I highly recommend you do, and start with his juveniles, what will be called young adults nowadays, which were written primarily for boys but also with girls in mind. I read a fair amount of Heinlein. The first thing I read was Stranger in a Strange Land. Yeah, John Galt just put it up there just ahead of me. Do you grok? It's funny. I woke up this morning thinking about that word. Isn't that a strange coincidence? Hadn't thought about that word for 30 years. There was a time when I was in my teens or in high school where people would say, I grok Spock, or I grok this, or I grok that. And it's like, but that Stranger in a Strange Land was interesting. Time Enough for Love was the thing that really put the hook in me. That idea about immortality, I think that's Time Enough for Love. and you just start an account and you put $10 in it and let compound interest get you there. And Lazarus Long, that was really fascinating. The idea, I think that's, did he say the word anagathics there, or is that from something else? But anyway, I like those very much. And I have to tell you, I read Starship Troopers, and the book is fantastic. It's absolutely great. And this movie treating the whole thing like it's some kind of a joke or parody. Do you want to know more? The whole thing. Service ensures citizenship or something like that. That is a profoundly good argument that he's making there. It's a really good argument, um, and it deserves a serious hearing. I think I got to be careful about this because I don't want to be misunderstood. But there is a there is a sharp edge to Heinlein and to Ayn Rand that I don't necessarily agree with. The reason I say that is only I 100% agree with what they're saying. And I think you could make a pretty good society if you gave somebody with some compassion and some understanding of human failings, you gave them just building blocks from Ayn Rand and Robert Heinlein. I think you'd have the best society possible in the world. Wouldn't be perfect, but nothing ever is. But yeah, Starship Troopers is great science fiction, among other things, and it's got so much really important stuff about what are your responsibilities and what are your freedoms and all of it. Yeah, I have read him, and I don't talk about him very much. I guess I don't talk about Ayn Rand very much either. I guess you see the thing. I don't know what you call the percentage of precious metal in ore. I guess you call it pay dirt. But there's an awful lot more metal in a bucket full of dirt that comes from Robert Heinlein than there is that comes from Ayn Rand. I think I think 95% of everything that she wrote in Atlas. Well, that's not that much, but I think you could cheerfully, easily cut 75% of that book and not lose a single element of what made the book great. I remember they got a paperback or something, and at the end of Atlas Shrugs, Ayn Rand has John Galt give it's honest to God, and I'm not making this up. It's something like a 65-page monologue. Seriously, no joke. It's just like a 65-page monologue, uh, and that's just not a good way to get across such an important message. Because when you're on the 5%, it's as good as anything I've ever read. It really is. It's not just as good as anything I ever read. It's profoundly, incredibly enlightened philosophy. Um, but anyway, that's that. So it's about 7:30 here on the West Coast as we record this, and I'm going to go home and we're going to go out and get a Christmas tree. Um, and I hope you all either have one or are going to get one. And if you're one of those people that are living by yourself, as I did for virtually all of my life, I would recommend you go out and get a Christmas tree. I did it for many, many years when I was alone. And some people think it's still, that makes you feel more lonely. I don't think so. I think if you're feeling lonely and kind of, left out at Christmas, and I know what that's like, believe me, I know what that's like. Um, then I would recommend you go out and buy a Christmas tree, and I recommend you just go out and just hang out with some people someplace, some kind of Christmas party. Uh, yeah, it's next Thursday, so I don't think we'll be doing a Stratosphere Lounge then, because I'll be setting up my various motion detectors and bear traps for that fat bastard, when he comes down the chimney, didn't give me the right color of bicycle when I was 6, and I've never forgiven him for it. Um, and Woody Fool says, if you're feeling lonely, ask others to join you at Christmas. I don't want to, because this is a long, long subject. It just kind of flew in my head at the last minute when I thought about getting a tree. But get yourself a tree, and Christmas is. I found it was. I found that Christmas with my own tree alone was less lonely than Christmas without a tree alone, and those were not good times at all. Well, Christmas is Wednesday. Conceivably might be able to be. I don't know. We'll see. Probably not. And if you are one of those people, by the way, this is just advice from the heart, really. It really is just sincere advice from the heart. If you're one of those people that are alone and you're going to be alone for the holidays, I cannot recommend this highly enough. You don't need an invitation. You don't need a recommendation. You don't need anything. Find yourself either an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting or a Narcotics Anonymous meeting. You think you're going to be surrounded by drunks, but you're not. You're going to be surrounded by really, really good people. Some of the funniest and best people I ever met. And even if you show up on Christmas Eve, you walk in the door, they will make you feel like home because people made them feel like they were coming home. There has never been, I don't think there's ever been a 12-step meeting ever, anywhere, that didn't recognize that whoever's coming through that door is hurting real bad. And you don't have to have gone. You don't even need to have a alcohol or drug problem. Just go. Honestly, I had a lot of fun in the 2 Christmases I spent with my Narcotics Anonymous addicts, and just being able to go out and have other people there. And if you're one of these people listening to this and you don't have a family or you're by yourself, not only are you going to run into people there, you're going to run into people there that know what it's like to be alone for Christmas. And I cannot recommend it highly enough. Honestly, if you start feeling yourself slipping into that black pit, just check the internet and find the nearest 12-step program. If you're younger, probably Narcotics Anonymous might be for you. If you're a little older, then Alcoholics Anonymous probably have more people like you. But I had thought that I would see nothing but drug addicts and stoners and drunks and stuff. But I just found some of the best people I ever met. Really, really good people who were hurting a lot, and genuine warmth. It's not pretend. When you come in there and they say welcome, it's not, and they say come on back when you leave. That's not pretend, and it's not salesmanship. It's not advertising. They really genuinely mean it. And you may find yourself finally with some people who understand what you're going through, and who knows, maybe the beginning of you finding your way out of that hole, the way I did. And I spent pretty near half a century, I would say, on and off, thinking that this just was never going to get better. And then suddenly it did, it just did, just got a lot better. I met my beautiful wife and spent the last 3 years just actually happy, which I didn't think was possible. So it can get better, but you gotta help. You gotta help it get better. So if you're one of those people, please take my advice. You won't regret it, and you should know that I'm thinking about you at Christmas, and so are all the rest of the people here in the Stratosphere Lounge. I know what that's like. It's not fun at all. So anyway, for the rest of you out there, Merry Christmas. And for those of you who may not be having a Merry Christmas to you too. It really can get better. It does get better. People can point you in the right direction, but you got to take the steps. But yeah, so Merry Christmas to everybody. I hadn't realized that. I thought it was next Thursday night, but have a terrific Christmas. And for our Jewish friends, have a terrific Hanukkah, and you enjoy yourselves and have a wonderful time until the trumpets sound, in which case you're going to be up Schitt's Creek. But in any event, No, it's great to have everybody there. Looking forward to seeing all of you in Miami, as many of you as you can get there, and we will see you in. I'm actually going away with Natasha for 4 or 5 days, so I may not be back the week after that. I may do one next Thursday because I don't think I can be in town for the next one. But Merry Christmas to everybody out there. Merry Christmas, and don't let any of this stuff ruin your Christmas. Christmas has been there, and that magic of Christmas is not an illusion, no matter what these filthy swine have to say. All right, that'll do it. And no snarky post-game message on this one, just because I feel like it's Christmas, and so time to go home and wrap up the presents. And that'll do it, I guess. It's kind of feeling kind of like I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave my friends. It's Christmas, so you guys have a great time out there. And if I don't see you next week, and I don't see you until 2020, which seems unlikely, but if I don't, have a great holiday, great Christmas, great New Year, and we will we'll have a lot of work to do in 2020. But we always have a lot of work to do. That's something to be thankful for. Okay, thanks. Good seeing you guys. Have a great Merry Christmas and a great holiday. And we'll see you next time here on the Stratosphere Lounge.